Yaxchilán, one of many of the lost cities in the jungle, which were first heard of during the first half of the 19th century, is located on the curve formed by the Usumacinta River along the border between Mexico and Guatemala. There it is, caressed by the waters of the river, amidst the vegetation where one finds, among other things, jovo, low bushes, acorns, and matapalo trees. The place where parrots, macaws, and howler monkeys still survive. The founding of this ancient and exceptional city dates back to the year 400 after Christ, when it was hardly more than a village, where most of their time its inhabitants dedicated themselves to farming, hunting, fishing, and harvesting activities. Toward their time of splendor, Yaxchilán, Bonampak, Palenque, and Tonina reached a level of socio-political organization that amazes us more and more with the passage of time. We are now in the labyrinth, so called because of its intricate layout. Inside galleries, where we can admire the vertical walls and the classic architectural resource of the typical Maya corbel vault. The complex appears particularly interesting and suggests, due to its characteristics, the existence of sophisticated political and administrative systems. The entry is located in the upper section, with a corridor in which a long bench in the shape of a throne stands out. It was built during the reign of the lady and dated toward the year 750 after Christ. The building corresponds to a period marked by considerable activity during the splendor of the site. The main facade of the labyrinth achieves a monumental aspect due to its position directly in front of the plaza. A visibly eroded central altar presides over the entrance. There, one can admire the deities that sustain the heavens and display the date 9 Ahau, 18 Shul, 746 after Christ. Furnished with 5 openings in a wall to provide access, the empty spaces in the niches and the remains of the decoration over the panel of the second terrace reveal by their deteriorated condition the passage of time. In the Grand Plaza, the uneven terrain helps one to recognize some constructions superpositioned on top of other already existing buildings. The limits of the city center are established by some foundations of terraces with staircases, which even today permit us to appreciate its extraordinary harmony with nature. The Mayas of Yaxchilán built temples and rooms which architectural layout combines the styles of Petén and the typical Palenque style. This building, to which Mahler assigned number 16, has completely lost its corbel vaults. There are 3 large openings in the wall, furnished with sculptured dintels, which provide access to it. In one of these, it is possible to see Jaguar Bird 4 holding the symbol of power, the staff bearing a 2-headed serpent. Together with the other sites, located in the lowlands that extended across the territory now occupied by the state of Chiapas, Yaxchilán began in the year 600 the development known today as the Classic Maya, which reached its peak toward the year 700 after Christ. The groups of people who inhabited the region at that time introduced different types of farming systems, which allowed them to increase production, store grain, and to turn corn into one of their main sources of food. We are now in building number 12. Two lintels, rich in hieroglyphic writing, are preserved. They narrate the succession of rulers prior to the dynasty of Yaxchilán. The meticulous work by specialists has identified the main characters in the succession to power: Yaxchilán I, Yaxchilán IV, and his successor. It also speaks of a particular period in which the state city was ruled by a woman. The scoreboard of the ball game shows a human figure sitting cross-legged and holding a ceremonial rod. The sole presence of the ball game court and of the individual who presides over it restores to Yaxchilán a sense of liveliness, whereby we can imagine in this beautiful and extraordinary place groups of people enthusiastic over the outcome of a game that could have been, in some instances, a dramatic landmark in the history of their times. The steam bath, the remains of which are still scattered over a wide steeped platform, is joined to one side of the ballgame court. This building was directly related to the ballgame itself, in what could be called a purification ritual. Now the lens opens up and curiosity draws us closer to Stela 1, in which the solar god Kin appears in conjunction with the moon, the sky, the stars, and the rain symbols. A divine liquid gushes from Jaguar Bird's hands and is received by a character who is kneeling in front of him. The sun appears underneath once again, representing now an earth monster, the elements of the universe, of life and submission to power, of reproduction, and of the space relative to the underworld, are masterly gathered on this stela. The stela, which was deliberately broken by the men of its time, hides from us the face of the central character, whose leadership had come to an end. We escape through the sacred tree, the silk cotton tree, toward the mask of Kin, who presides at the entrance of temple number 6. In the north of Yucatan, it was to Chac they called for the needed rain. Here in Yaxchilán, in building number 6, it was to the solar god Kin they called to ask the help of the sun to hold back the force of the rain, which during a long period of the year falls over the territory of the state of Chiapas. The effects of the passage of time hinder the reading of the hieroglyphic staircase in the construction referred to as building number 5. Before the camera, we have a scene which leaves us with a sense of nostalgia. Stela number 11, a huge stela which lies on the ground, surprising us with its size and aesthetic quality, presents two lavishly attired figures, one in front of the other, standing over a complex of glyphs that record their story. The profile of the two chiefs face each other as if poised for combat. Both wear sandals and leg bands. We can see a coat of arms or a medallion on the lower part of the first chief, Jaguar Bird 4. From here, we can view building number 22, now devoid of its corbel vault roof. The facade, built with 3 openings in the wall to provide access, still has 2 carved lintels, wherein the history of succession of rulers who preceded the dynasty founded by Jaguar Shield I is narrated. Building number 20 holds a valuable treasure. Lintels 13 and 14, both brilliantly worked. The camera shows us one of the two. The scene could be described as the encounter of a high-ranking woman who offers an object in the shape of a vessel holding instruments for a self-sacrifice. In front of her, Jaguar Shield II, the last ruler of Yaxchilán, displays evidence of his royal breeding in the richness of his vestments. beheaded anthropomorphous figure that we see inside was originally placed in the presently empty niche in the building facade. Inside building number 21, over the rear wall that we now see, we find the preserved remains of several anthropomorphous figures seated or held up by a two-headed snake. One of the heads evokes the sun, while the other evokes the god Tlaloc, bearing the same attributes known in Mexico's high plateau. In front, a stela stands depicting a woman who holds a vessel with the objects destined for self-sacrifice. This is the woman that ruled over Yaxchilán during 10 years. Her tomb, located at the foot of the stela, was recently explored. There they are, the lords and the emblem glyphs, the genealogy as evidence of their certainty that they had in the recognition of their history and importance. Legend and myth come together, as well as the ability to express themselves and the strength to resist not only the forces of nature, but also to reach the dramatic end of their destiny. At the highest point of the site, the inhabitants of Yaxchilán built 3 temples. On temple number 41, we can see different superimposed ornaments on the facade and the niches that date back to its last days. The splendid stela number 11, which we saw in the Grand Plaza, lying on the floor, originally came from temple number 40, a very well-preserved construction. And temple number 39, in which, as is common on the site, the openings in the walls display stepped lintels, and further above, the battlement that makes this building one of the best preserved constructions on the site. The buildings located on an esplanade that we now see, labeled with numbers 43, 44, 45, and 46, go by the name of Little Acropolis. They were built during the governments of Jawar Shield I and Jawar Bird IV. In one of the lintels of building number 44, Jawar Shield I shows his might as a conqueror. He can be seen capturing enemy warriors at whom he makes threatening gestures with his spear. The buildings that extend across Little Acropolis and the ones identified with numbers 39, 40, and 41 could be seen from afar, from the residential areas, considering that during the classic period, the jungle that originally surrounded and covered the area had been cleared away in order to be able to farm, build houses, and for other domestic uses. Once again, we are in the Grand Plaza, in front of the monumental axis that leads to building number 33. To the front, we can see a stela dated in 600 after Christ, which was again put into use during the reign of Jaguar Bird IV. On the way to building number 33, we will see the facades of other structures which will allow us to establish a comparison between two different periods in the architecture of Yaxchilán. On building number 33, which served as a base to place a polychromatic decoration in mottled stucco, evokes the time when the city rejoiced in the glory of better days. At the center of the roof ridge, we can still admire a niche containing the remains of what must have been a gigantic sculpture of Jaguar Bird IV. The profile of the rear facade, from which the edge of the roof ridge stands out, gives building number 33 a special touch and makes it the most important and best preserved construction on the site. As with other buildings in Yaxchilán, it could be admired from a long way off in many directions. Once again, In the interior, one encounters the image of Jaguar Bird 4, but this time it is a sculpture which was deliberately decapitated at some previous point in time. The Lacandones associate this building with the house of Yaxchilán, the creator of all things, and they state the fact that the day the head reappears in its place, the jaguars from the sky will descend to the earth and will eat all men. The world will be devoured, and all life will end. Here is the representation of the ball game displayed on the steeped architectural structure, with glyphs inside. A player in traditional costume rests his knee on the ground, as if positioned to strike an enormous ball that contains inside the image of a prisoner with his hands and feet bound and the glyph that identifies him. Further away, the dwarfs, who were held sacred among the Mayas, appear in a splendid relief, along with other figures, and the whole composition achieves a remarkable degree in aesthetic value. From the information provided by the stele, the altars and the lintels, it has been possible to establish the exact dates for the development of what is known as the Maya Classic period, particularly in the case of Yaxchilán and its relationship with other important sites nearby, such as Palenque, Bonampak, and Toniná. In the first of these, even the emblem glyph of the city of the green stones was discovered. Situated on the far west side of the municipality of Tenosique, in the state of Tabasco, lies Pomoná, a place near the edge of the area where the Usumacinta River, also known as River of the Monkeys, flows into the wide coastal plains of the Gulf of Mexico. Pomoná presents to us its grand plaza, surrounded by scattered structures which remain largely unexplored. The city enjoyed its splendor during the late Classic period, between 600 and 900 after Christ. Same as in other sites in the area, the solar god Kin is also present here. Even though the evidence encountered on the formative period has been accidental, some elements could have been related to the ancient Olmec culture, extended across the territory occupied today by the states of Veracruz and Tabasco. As with other Maya sites located in the lowlands, its climate is tropical and rainy. In spite of this, the high jungle has disappeared, leaving the area free for grazing cattle. The archaeological city of Pomona is related to other important sites of the so-called Usumacinta province, which includes Yaxchilán, El Cayo, Piedras Negras, Chiniquijá, and Palenque, among others. Pomona was established on a series of low hills located on the left bank of the river and consists of 6 important architectural compounds, which, when combined with the residential areas, extended across a considerable surface of close to 432 acres. Pomona played an important role in relation to other sites because of its location, exactly upon the gateway to the upper Usumacinta, and consequently to an important portion of Petén. Surely, in its moment of glory, Pomona must have been considered an important center within the commercial network which was established between the towns of the region and those situated along the Gulf Coast. Even when the weather conditions and the heavy amount of rain represented great difficulties, thanks to the development the lowland Mayas had reached, they were able to build a good number of state cities in which today we can admire a complex interweaving that constituted in the place the exercise of government and administration, of religion and myths, or art and engineering, of astronomy and deities, or sculpture and glyphs. Undeniable models of a group of people who knew how to become one with nature and how to construct temples from which to go in search of the gods. is inhabited by the jaguar and the howler monkey. Next to the flower, the voice and the river, a bird in flight made its nest. The dream forgot its old stories and caught the wings of the wind before the sun in an eternal watch. Death came in the hands of the waiting, and the pupil widened to spy closely where the miracle begins and the counting of the days ends. A breath from the river reaches the shore in order to closely touch the edge of fate and to do away with the fear whence routine took its leave. Nothing is known for certain concerning the collapse. We know they were here. There are testimonies which tell us about the activities they carried out and about the spiritual and material fulfillment of their daily life. Many could have been the causes which forced the Mayas to abandon their great urban centers, along with their temples. Many others which could have kept them from coming back. Today, we know a small part of their history. We admire the trace they left on earth and feel the extraordinary force of their presence.